will be even a better player, and he was a good one for KC. He'll be an even better player for the Rams. So the Rams said, hey, man, we are in a Super Bowl window. We are going to go for it. And Trent McDuffie is a lot better than the 29th pick because the Rams have 2 first-round picks. They just gave up one. Here's another team that should do that. The Chicago Bears. They are now this morning the odds-on favorite to sign Raiders edge rusher Max Crosby.
Okay. Well, those are 2 different segments right now. So let's just talk about the Los Angeles Rams trade, and then we can make I'll make another video talking about the Bears. He's kind of skipping over the actual big news right now, which is Trent McDuffie being traded to the Los Angeles Rams. Yeah. No, I mean, this is obviously great. I mean, this is what I was talking about with the Rams. I forget kind of, throughout the course of the offseason. There's nothing else they need offensively. And it's not that I'm expecting Matthew Stafford to have like an identical season. But my whole thing I kept repeating this take because it's just how I feel. And quite frankly, I've repeated it for the last 2 years, is that as long as Stafford is healthy, the way how this team is presently structured, they're an elite team. They're a top team. They're a Super Bowl contender. Just as long as Stafford's healthy, you're good. Obviously, outside of other, random injuries. But as long as Stafford is there and the team is generally healthy, they're an elite team. They're a top team. They're a genuine Super Bowl contender. And the difference between winning and losing is just, did it work out for you this year, right? Like when some of these teams don't win, it's not. We love to just always say like, it was because of the defense. It was because we dropped that ball. It's because of this, because of that. And it was like you zoom in on like some of these singular events and it's just like, no, you just lost the game on that Saturday or that Sunday, or that Monday, whenever you have your playoff game. It was just like you weren't necessarily not capable of winning a Super Bowl. You weren't necessarily worse than that team. It was just, you just lost because that's football and you the better team. I'd love to actually look at the real math. And I don't mean when you play really bad teams, but when you play another team that's, another legitimate playoff team, right? I just would love to know the actual math of how frequently the better team wins. Like, what's the true math behind it? It's probably significantly more narrow than people ever want to acknowledge. And so when you have moves like this, the way how I always look at it is it gives you a greater margin of error. Tom Brady, and I've showed this clip a million times, and I'm not going to show the clip because it doesn't matter as much. It's more of a jumping off point. But Brady has talked about how like a great offensive coordinator gives his quarterback a wider margin of error, right? With throwing the ball, the plays to make, etc. I also look at it through the lens of like, when you make moves like this, it gives your team as a whole a wider margin of error. And so, you not only will a move like this make obviously the Rams a better team, but it gives them, say it with me, a bigger, wider margin of error. And so that is to me what a move like this ultimately does. And so yeah, it's a huge move, and to look at it from the Chiefs' standpoint, it's interesting. They're giving obviously an important defensive player. They're getting a 29th overall pick. So that means now they have 2 first-round picks. They pretty much flipped that with the Rams essentially. Yeah, it's interesting. It's I don't want to say it's kicking the can down the road for the Kansas City Chiefs, but like, it's not a back to basics for the Chiefs either right now. And again, they got, I forget what he said, what was it? A third next year. A fifth and a sixth, or a fifth and a seventh, or whatever it is. Once you start getting down into like the 4s, 5, 6s and beyond, like you're I don't know, it's always a little bit of a roll of the dice. We always remember a couple of the main guys that get drafted later in a draft that actually like pull off a legit career, but like it's like 90% of those guys do nothing. So it's hard to really understand, but a third rounder is, I think, is still legit, and it's not like the Kansas City Chiefs don't know what they're doing in terms of in the draft. So it's not hard to imagine that can work well for them in the future. But yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating move. It's a fascinating move. It's a clear win now move, which obviously we understand that, right? We know that's what, that's what the Rams are doing. And this was kind of my whole mentality that I think other teams need to be doing to take some of these swings. Whether it's the Buffalo Bills, whether it's the Dallas Cowboys, like I think like these are the types of moves when people say, are you all in? Are you taking a big swing? I had a whole video talking about this and I was just like, what does that actually mean? What does that actually mean? I think it was a Cowboys video and it's just like when people saying they're going all in, they're taking a big swing, what does that actually mean? It's something like this right here. It's something like this right here. It's acknowledging that our best opportunity to win a Super Bowl is essentially this year and like next year or something, but especially this year. And that's when it's time to go all in. When you understand that, you go, I'm taking the swing right now. It's essentially what all Super Bowl winners ultimately have done, whether it was the Rams, years ago, whether it was the Eagles, whether it was the 49ers, even though they didn't win a Super Bowl, but they certainly got to multiple Super Bowl. It's what you need to do. And the teams that don't make that extra move, the Cowboys, they come up short. The Bills, they come up short. The Ravens, they come up short, right? The teams that don't take that extra step, they ultimately come up short. There's always that extra step, that extra move, that again, it widens your margin of error. So if we go back with what I was saying before, and these are made up numbers, but if the best team, the better team in the playoffs wins 59% or something, 60% of the time, a move like this, even if it just increases it by 3%, that's still huge. That's still a massive boost. And so you're putting yourself in a situation that if you're already the better team, you're more likely to actually win and prove we are indeed the better team. And again, that's what we've seen out of the Rams. That's what we've seen out of the Eagles. That's what we've seen again out of all the teams that have actually won a Super Bowl or at least gotten to a Super Bowl. It's that extra Rashid Shahed with the Seattle Seahawks. That was massive, right? That was massive. But I remember when they made that move at the time, I said, we can look back at this move and say, like, this was the move. And I always reference the Rams. The Rams are actually my gold standard reference point for that because they did it when they won the Super Bowl. Not to mention, they obviously traded for Matthew Stafford, which is obviously pretty massive. But then they went out and got OBJ and Von Miller. Okay, those were not guys that they originally had throughout the season. And without those two moves, they do not win the Super Bowl. They do not win the Super Bowl. So it's like that they, to me, are actually really the gold standard of like, what's that next move? What's that next step? The Eagles getting Saquon Barkley, right? Like there's that next move, that next step. And sometimes it happens in the offseason. Sometimes it happens in the middle of the season. And it all can kind of depend. But this is, to me, this is that move. Ask yourself if they had him last season, if they were able to make a move for him last season and, have him going into the Seahawks game. Does that make a difference? I mean, probably, right? How could it not? I'm not saying that they win now, but like, I don't know. Do they win against the Seahawks whatever week that was in the crazy overtime game, right? Do they beat the Panthers during the regular season, right? Like you can look at a couple key losses and you can be like, would this have changed things? Would they have been the number ones? It's got a massive butterfly domino effect. So I don't know why Colin only talked about it for 2 seconds. Maybe he'll talk about it more like later in the show. But this is huge to me, and I'm gonna end the clip here, and I'll talk about the Chicago Bears and Max Crosby. But like, this is the story right now. This is breaking news. This is the conversation. So maybe he's waiting for Los Angeles Rams people to wake up, since he's usually operates more on like a East Coast, like midday time. I don't know. But let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, some discussions, get some fights, but ultimately let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to. something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much.